Thank you, Madam Chair. I am Lisa Shahin from the Arab Group for the Protection of Nature and the Arab Network for Food Sovereignty, and I facilitate for the West Asia region within the CSIPM. For the past year, we have witnessed the use of starvation as a weapon on full display, as a genocide unfolds right before our eyes. Alongside the indiscriminate bombing, the Israeli occupation has targeted Gaza's agricultural sector, destroying over 80% of local food systems. They have blocked the entry of aid, food, and water. Farmers and their families are being targeted and killed. Land and water poisoned by white phosphorus. The roots of Palestinian food sovereignty eradicated. Gaza is now experiencing the fastest onset of famine in post-war history. But let me be clear, this did not start last October. It is, in fact, an intensification of a long-standing, systematic strategy of collective punishment, ethnic cleansing, and weaponization of food. Likewise, in Lebanon, the Israeli occupation has intensified its attack on agricultural lands, employing a scorched earth policy, destroying everything in its path, including crops, livestock, and infrastructure. In Yemen, the suspension of most food aid has left 17 million people facing crisis level or acute food insecurity. In Sudan, more than half of the population are experiencing crisis levels of hunger. In Congo, 23.4 million people are facing crisis and emergency levels of food insecurity. The combined populations of New York, Lebanon, London, Paris, and Rome together. Yet, we are still asked to remain diplomatic, avoiding any mention of this genocide or any other conflict in our discussions. But what has been diplomatic achieved? It has led to impunity and the systematic failure of people, international law, and the right to food. We cannot continue to ignore or remain silent about the structural causes that has brought us to this point. Settler colonialism, occupation, wars, and protracted crises. Even worse, member states continue to ignore their extraterritorial obligations and are complicit to genocide under international humanitarian law by financing, arming, and fueling the war of starvation in Gaza. We have the right to food guidelines and the framework for action in protracted crises, adopted by member states in this committee. Yet there has been little to no political will to implement these commitments. We, as most affected communities, will not remain silent in the face of your inaction and impunity. We demand an end to the genocide and the weaponization of food. We demand member states to take decisive action. We called that the CFS was reformed in 2009 in response to a global food crisis to fight fragmented action. But today, again, or still, we find ourselves in a severe, global, multifaceted food crisis, and this committee has to do its job. Coordinated policy responses have never been more needed. The credibility of the entire UN system is at risk. The CFS is the most legitimate space for this objective due to its inclusiveness, particularly of those most affected, its human rights framework, and the evidence based from the HLPE. For this reason, we welcome the summary report on the work stream on collaborative governance for coordinated policy responses to emerging global food crises. This platform work stream enables the CFS to reach out to other UN spaces with which collaboration must be built to find solutions to the underlying causes of food crises, bridging gaps between Rome, Geneva, and New York. Among the key topics proposed for attention in coming meetings in the summary report, the CSIPM prioritizes protracted crises and peace building, debt burdens connecting with the 2025 financing for development conference, trade and overcoming food import dependency, and climate change and biodiversity in collaboration with the Rio COPs. We insist that it is necessary to ensure interpretation for this work stream, since it is intended to provide priority voice for most affected countries and constituencies, precisely those who cannot be expected to express themselves in English. As always, the CSIPM brings to the CFS the voices from the ground of our constituencies, smallholder and peasant farmers organizations, pastoralists, fisherfolks, indigenous peoples, women, youth, agricultural and food workers, consumers, landless, and urban food insecure. In our meetings over the past days, we have shared the intersectional cross-cutting problems we are facing and the solutions we propose. We have denounced conflict and violence in all of its forms, including the violated rights of workers, indigenous peoples, and other constituencies. We have denounced the specific impact of the weaponization of food on women as the main food providers for their families and communities. We have denounced corporate-led pressure to modernize our food production, promoting industrial, export-oriented agriculture rather than the food sovereignty of our peoples. We have called out untenable urban sprawl. We have exchanged our experiences with the impacts of climate change and the need to promote our peasant agroecological principles. For us, land, oceans, rivers, forests, seeds, and all of nature are the very basis of life, but they are also contested resources. Land and ocean grabs and unequitable land distributions are root causes of increased food insecurity. We therefore welcome and support Colombia's proposal to organize a second international conference on agrarian reform and rural development as part of the commitment towards the realization of the right to food, further advancing the uptake of CFS products such as the BGGTs. Thank you.